his message is to try and get out. And ultimately, I keep running into a wall because it comes down to the fact that he believes that the Bible is true, and I can't really convince him that it's not, because he thinks it's some sort of prophecy book because they say it come true, even though there's no real people that understand the Bible and are blessed by God can interpret this, and it's very frustrating.
If I may,
yeah.
First of all, I think that before you can try and convince him anything otherwise, you have to find out what type of person he is. I find that with the Bible, the vast majority of the problems that are caused by religious folks aren't caused by people who view their holy books as, allegorical or figurative.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. I did. The first thing I tried to talk to him about before the whole rapture thing, I just tried to get to know him as a person, sort of befriend him. This way, it's not like I'm trying to attack him or anything like that. And I brought up the topics of evolution, all those things, and I got him. Because he used to be a biologist when he was in college, and now he's like a dad of 7 or something like that. He's got a life and a family that he's neglecting due to this whole rapture thing. And so I started talking to him about evolution, figuring that's some sort of way in since he has a biological background. And when he was in college, he came to God and realized that science is bullshit and yada, yada, yada. So I got to talking to him about microevolution. Like just basically differences between you and your cousin or your grandfather, small-scale things. And I tried to get him to picture that on a large-scale level, but he accepted the notion of adaptation and microevolution to a degree. But he said to make a jump and a leap to macroevolution just doesn't make sense. And I was like, no, of course a llama doesn't give birth to a duck. That'd be ridiculous, of course. It's just as ridiculous as thinking there's some guy up in heaven listening to all our prayers, which he didn't take too kindly to that. But I've been trying back and forth to talk to him and get to know him, and he seems like certain ideas can actually get through to him, and others just strictly no.
If I may, not to self-plug, but I have a video that's questions for people who don't accept evolution, and some of the arguments in there are, even if you don't have a degree in biology, but he does, so that's certainly a plus thing. It's just a list of several very just fucking hammer it at them questions that are pretty simple that they can understand. So you might, again, not to do a shameless self-promotion, but I made that video specifically for people like that. So I don't know, check that out and try some of those on them. That might work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's the video?
My last video deals with the notion about accepting evolution only partially, only up to a point, and then bringing in your notions of specifically created kinds or baramins, being these unique groups unrelated to anything else. Okay, well, where are they? And for me, the most compelling argument for evolution is phylogeny. Because you can't separate any of these allegedly created kinds. The cattle kind, for example, the one that is specified in the Bible, good luck isolating that one. Damn it, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just asking you guys, what do you think? 'Cause, I mean, I've only got, 6 days now before he makes a fool of himself?
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know. Apart from plugging my series, either of them, the Falsifying Phylogeny series or the FFOC, I don't have another suggestion. If you wanted one concise argument, it would be all the people who believe wildly different things, and they all declare these things to be absolute truth and divinely inspired.
And they're all experts.
Go ahead, Don.
Oh, I was just going to say, and they're all experts. They've all got their degrees in, feriology or whatever, or theology, and so they're all. It's not like they're just random people sitting, with giant headphones in, their friend's trailer making videos. I mean, these are people who are supposedly experts in their field, and they've all got. And this is the difference between science and theology. It's that with science, you go out, you get educated, and the experiments, and you read the peer-reviewed literature, and everybody's science, all the data starts out here, you learn more, and it comes to a point. With religion, you can start off with a literal interpretation, and then people read, and they learn more, and they get their doctorates in theology, and they all go in different directions. So there's a big...
I put it like this. With science, you can start out from any position. But you do the game like asking 20 questions for anything, the game 20 questions. And regardless from what perspective you start from, you're going to zero in. Any number of people can start from any number of different positions, but if there's one reality that they're all looking at, then the more they refine their understanding of that, the more they're all going to centralize on the same thing, so that everybody from whatever background eventually focuses in on the same one and only reality, because there's only one reality. They're all going to focus on that one. Religion wants to pretend that they can believe whatever they want and that they can interpret whatever they want. So, I mean, this is the way the religion starts out. It doesn't start out from the Bible and then build on all these different interpretations, because it's not just the Bible. There's lots of different unrelated religions. So religion literally starts out more or less like throwing a dart at nowhere. Okay, we'll start from there and go every direction, because then you have all the different interpretations coming out. So it is as bad as the blind leading the blind, leading the blind, and couldn't get any more random than that.
Mm-hmm. I thought of maybe taking an approach against dualism, because dualism, if you accept that notion that we live in a material world and that there's some sort of invisible world that lives outside of this, then that opens the door for God and other such fantasy creatures as that. But that's a really, really hard road to walk down. People aren't very accepting to believe a non-dualist perspective because they're so certain that the self is something that lives outside of this material world. Now, I don't know if that's a good angle or not.
Well, if you took that angle, you know, a lot of people believe only what they only know about, the one religion that they've been indoctrinated into, and they are completely oblivious to all these other religious perspectives elsewhere in the world. And so if you take that tack that there's dualism, which, as you put it, would leave room for God and all these other things, and that, of course, means other interpretations of God, other definitions of gods, for example. And so when you allow for this one, well, now you've got all these other possibilities you've got to bring into it, like Sikhism and Hinduism and Shinto and you know, the Chinese ancestor worship and all these other variants of shaman and degrees of paganism and such, and say, okay, so what do you have to indicate that this is any better from that? And when they bring up the ideas about that, you know, the arguments for the Bible, the various ones that you get in apologetics, you know, the creationist pseudoscience, you can pull up the exact same arguments, essentially, for the Quran. Interpretation about how the Quran knew about the Big Bang before scientists did. And you can do the same thing for the Book of Mormon, because they have this similar sort of apologetics for that, too, proving that the Book of Mormon had divine knowledge that could only have come to them, you know, through God's direct involvement. And so you have these three books, which obviously conflict with each other completely, but they're all arguing the same kind of thing. Now, logically, as Matt Dillahunty put it, if there was a supreme intelligence, you know, behind everything, he obviously would not be writing a book that would be subject to these kind of interpretations and failed arguments.
Well, I think, for what I've at least gathered from Christian background and speaking with this Brother Mike guy, if I were him, I would argue that man is faulty and they're not truly listening to God, and that people that are truly listening to God, as such Harold Camping and Brother Mike and other people of that nature, know the true nature of those things. But that's just delusional. How do I get around that?
I have Muslim posters today posting on some of my videos that exact comment, you know, that only the Quran has been uncorrupted, and that many scientists agree with this. So you get all these people that have their own personal subjective opinions, which are all completely unsubstantiated. And why is that? Because God, one of the mysterious things, you know, that God does, he always selects some individual, some obscure person nobody will believe, who has no specific education, who people even doubt whether they even exist or not, and he's going to give all this revelation to that person. And it's going to be somebody who molested his own children, or it's going to be a naked old drunk, or it's going to be somebody that is completely reprehensible by our standards, and that's what they're going to declare to be the most noble of all people. Right?
Or a gay amphet user.
Exactly. So it's questionable even there. So you have absolutely no criteria to go on. And then what are you judged for? Whether or not you believe it. So you're given no reason to believe that, and you're given every reason not to, but you're going to be damned forever if you doubt it. Logically, there's just no place to hold a belief like that. But that's assuming that you can get this guy to understand logic.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing. If someone said that they were visited by aliens, and the only thing they can come up with is, let's say, a T-shirt that says, the aliens anal probed me, and all I got was a stupid T-shirt, you'd be so skeptical, wouldn't you? I mean, it's not the kind of thing that you associate with ultra-power, technologically advanced beings. And it's the same thing. If you find an old book that shows all of the human frailties and failings of people, wouldn't you kind of logically conclude that's probably who wrote it? Wouldn't your skepticism be a little higher for something that has things like, bad grammar in it, or little regionalisms? Why would God have an accent? Why would he use a certain language, or she?
The notion of this advanced civilization, they build this spaceship and they fly thousands of light years here away from their friends and families at great peril. For what purpose? To stick something in your butt. Sorry, that's why that's, a kind of funny argument. Go ahead.
I'm sure you've gone to great lengths to do similar things, so I don't think it's that obscure.
As we discussed earlier, I just slipped your mom a 20. Anyways, go ahead.
Look, if that kind of thing had happened, it would happen to me. I lived in a trailer in the desert, okay? I never saw anything like that while I was conscious.
Okay, I think we're going to move on. Thank you very much indeed for the call.
Not a problem.
I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Take care.
I will.